Dr. Jordan Peterson, highly esteemed Canadian psychologist, best-selling author, and wildly popular political commentator, amassing millions upon millions of followers, often polarizing with his strong takes.
The overwhelming proportion of people who are in prisons are male. Do you want to equalize that, just out of curiosity? What about bricklayers? They're 99% male.
Winning people over with how he carries himself in highly stressful and unfair encounters.
Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
And absolutely shutting down interviewers with nothing but facts and logic.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
and in the process, winning the hearts of millions upon millions of disenfranchised young men. Mr. Peterson, you said in your book that on day 69 of NoFap, you gained the ability to levitate. Is that true?
You know, it's been remarkable, eh? I mean, I've been on this journey for a while now, and it's really something. You know, it's really something when you willingly tame the dragon lurking between your legs, liberating your body from the tyranny of the serpent. Hey, it's an archetypal moment in stories, you know?
Mr. Peterson, I was wondering if I could ask you about...
so many things better than just mindless sex, you know? Like root beer, you know, a good game of Risk, and maybe some Trailer Park Boys, you know? I do like me some Trailer Park Boys.
Mr. Peterson, thank you very much. Recently, Jordan Peterson has seen a pretty hefty fall from grace in the eyes of many. Jordan Peterson fucked up. Jordan Peterson committed the cardinal sin of personal branding, and because of this, he has and continues to receive a lashing from the public. Twitter, what a wonderful place, where nothing but high IQ conversations and opinions are shared. A gathering of the most intelligent and delightful people the human race has to offer, all sharing their incredibly well thought out and intricate opinions on world events in real time.
Can we just also say we don't actually need gravity? I saw someone do this. Was this a TikTok? We were watching something where someone's like, we don't actually need gravity. We were watching this with me. Like, we actually don't need it.
What do you mean that we don't need gravity?
What if it was never invented?
Invented by who?
Sir Isaac Newton.
If you follow Jordan Peterson on Twitter, or X now, it's now called X, thank you Elon for confusing us all, you may have noticed that Jordan Peterson is actually a bit of a nut when he posts. He comes across so intelligent and nuanced in his long-form content, but on Twitter, he comes across as a barking schizo, which I find very interesting. Even the most intelligent and well-spoken of us can fall victim to a social media platform which rewards abrasiveness and reactive content with a character limit. What could go wrong, right? Jordan Peterson's gotten away with how he uses Twitter really because of his long-form content. I think most people can just turn a blind eye to his very reactive and schizo posting on Twitter because it seems like such an anomaly. It doesn't really make sense. Although he does get questioned about how he uses Twitter a lot in interviews, the interviewers often cast Jordan Peterson as just like an angry white man, you know? And you can see where that comes from if you look at Jordan Peterson's Twitter feed. Jordan Peterson is a victim of the Twitter algorithm, which encourages highly emotional and reactive responses. And I kind of saw how Jordan Peterson was using Twitter as a ticking time bomb. I mean, really, the only thing that Jordan Peterson using Twitter accomplishes is just giving his enemies ammunition against him, to be honest. He doesn't come across very well in short form reactive posts. But in early October, that ticking time bomb exploded. On October 7th, the Israel-Palestine conflict escalated drastically after a heinous terrorist attack carried out by Hamas inside of Israel's borders. And if you were on Twitter at that time, you probably would have been exposed to some pretty egregious imagery of that terrorist attack. I know I was. It's pretty safe to say that emotions were running pretty high, with everyone pitching in their thoughts and their own personal beliefs. Now, I'm not going to go into the Israel-Palestine conflict. I understand that a lot of people are very emotionally involved in this topic, understandably. I don't have the answers, and frankly, none of you give a shit about my opinion anyway. My opinion is actually very simple. I don't like innocent people dying. And as for the intricate details and the logistics of what's happening and why it's happening, I'm just a guy on YouTube who likes talking about business and money. That's me. And the funny thing about Twitter is that it reinforces the beliefs in people that everyone should give a shit about their opinions on everything. No one on that platform is actually there to learn or change their opinions. They're just there to rally behind others who share the same opinions as them. No matter the cost, even if it's disingenuous, it's misinformation, it doesn't matter. This reinforces my opinion. Rally, 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 hit the like button. And so this creates a feedback loop of people thinking that their opinions are valued, when in reality, no one gives a shit. I don't think anyone in the history of the world has ever actually changed their opinion because of an exchange that they've had on Twitter. So Karen, who works at HR at H&M, I'm sorry to say, but no one gives a shit about your opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict. And I'm sorry, if you think war is a simple black and white solution, right or wrong, you haven't studied history enough. What I'm interested in is business and personal branding. And the moment Jordan Peterson imploded half of his following by making one reactive tweet. Give him hell at Israeli Prime Minister. Enough is enough. The implications of that tweet are drastic. And with half of Jordan Peterson's highly reactive and emotional following against the Israeli retaliation on Hamas, not just against it, but highly against it, Jordan Peterson nuked half of his following just like that. And with real human lives at stake in this conflict, there really is no room for error. So what is the cardinal sin that Jordan Peterson fell into? Jordan Peterson, being a highly esteemed psychologist who has in-depth studied the atrocities of war and talked about it very, very often, calling for hell to be dispensed upon the population of Palestine, is wildly inappropriate. Jordan Peterson betrayed his audience. And you might be thinking, Sam, if you just extrapolate the tweet a little bit, he's probably talking about giving Hamas hell, not the innocent civilians of Palestine. And of course, you would be correct. However, it doesn't matter. It's Twitter. And the implications of Israel giving Palestine hell means that thousands upon thousands of innocent civilians will die. Women, children, babies will all die. And they have been dying. It's a very real consequence. For Jordan Peterson to encourage that is a monumental betrayal on his audience. Dr. Peterson, I have respect for you and the work you've done to help young men. Beyond grateful for the wisdom you've passed on to many times in need. But while I sympathize with your anger at the loss of innocent lives at the hands of terrorists, becoming a warmonger, whether intentional or not, is extremely demoralizing for those of us that see you as an example of a good man. That's one of the reasonable responses that I saw in response to Jordan Peterson's tweet. Embedded amongst a lot of much less reasonable responses that I saw as well. And even to this day, if you go on to the latest tweet of Jordan Peterson, you'll see people leaving a lot of hate. Anyone outside of the conflict can see how complicated things are. With Hamas having their bases of operation under things like hospitals and schools, the consequences of giving them hell are very clear. It's a real shame that Jordan Peterson fell victim to the reactiveness of Twitter. And I can fully empathize with getting caught up in highly emotional world events. But when you're running a business, a personal brand, or if you're an influencer, you have very little room for error, especially with things like this with very devastating consequences, where everyone's emotions are so high and it's such a polarizing topic. And we see this quite often with brands betraying their audiences. For example, just recently Bud Light, which is a redneck beer company who decided it would be a brilliant idea to run ads which featured a transgender person in them. And their stocks absolutely plummeted. And then other examples of personal brands, for example, iDubbbz, which a few of you might be familiar with, a YouTube content creator who used to be, quite edgy. He had edgy humor, but recently doing a complete 180 on his own personal brand after marrying an OnlyFans model. And he just gets endless shit now because his core audience are the edgy guys, right? So him doing a complete 180 on all of those things and marrying an OnlyFans model was a complete betrayal upon his core audience. And then also one which particularly pissed me off, Gillette running anti-toxic masculinity ads. I've not bought a single Gillette product since they run those ads. All because they wanted to virtue signal to a population of people who don't even consume their products. They lost a lifelong customer. And I'm certainly not alone in that notion. I know that ad run a lot of people the wrong way. All of these once cherished brands all committed the same cardinal sin as Jordan Peterson. They betrayed their audience. I do think Jordan Peterson can come back from this. And I am exaggerating with the 50% nuking of his following. I think most people with half a brain saw the tweet and sort of understood where he was coming from. Obviously, he doesn't want innocent civilians to die. He wants Hamas to be killed, which I think is perfectly reasonable, to say the least. It was a highly reactive and emotional tweet to make, with no thoughts to the implications of giving them hell. But he's already actually acknowledged this on an interview recently with Piers Morgan.
Twitter is a very complicated social media platform, and it's been difficult for me to learn how to use it wisely. And I'm not alone in that because it's difficult to be wise on Twitter. What I'm trying to learn is when a tweet is appropriate and when a long-form commentary is appropriate. I was very taken aback by what happened in Israel. I allowed myself to express some sentiment at that point without providing context. That wasn't as good as providing the context. And I'm rethinking Twitter overall at the moment.
Well, it's been remarkable.
Jordan Peterson and anyone else running a personal brand or a business needs to become far less reactive with how they tweet. He needs to become much more calculated with how he uses Twitter as a whole, because being on Twitter and just shit posting and schizo posting all day is a very dangerous game to be playing as a personal brand and or business. It just takes one tweet and you've polarized a lot of your following. And he needs to utilize long form a lot more for things which require more nuance, because this is where Jordan Peterson shines. You have to understand your strengths and you have to understand your weaknesses. Jordan Peterson does not come across very well on Twitter with a character limit at all. He comes across a lot better on long form content where he can actually speak through his thoughts. I think within 3 months everyone would have forgotten about this tweet anyway. I do think he'll have a hard time winning back some of his polarized fans. What we can learn from this is the following. Number 1, polarize only when it fits your messaging. Don't be like Gillette and betray your core audience to virtue signal to a bunch of bozos who aren't even going to be buying your products anyway. Well done, you get brownie points with the SJW lot, for example, but they're not buying your shit. Men are buying your fucking razors, guys, okay? Number 2, avoid highly reactive and emotional responses. In times of distress and high emotions, bad and unoptimal decisions will be made. Understand how the world works. Understand that there is a select few people who want you to be highly emotional so that they can take advantage of you. And finally, number 3, Twitter is a shithole. Less of a shithole now Musk runs it, but still a shithole.